Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Surreal Gerald Quinn, for this podcast on a Sunday, the first weekend of summer. I hope everybody out there is enjoying their weekend and enjoyed their week. We have a lot to do in terms of the NBA. We'll go through all the trades and, of course, some things that kind of stood out from draft night and look ahead to the free agency, which is coming up in a couple of days here. Well, next week or July 30th, excuse me, not July 30th, June 30th into July 1st. Obviously, one of the big trades from a contender was the Boston Celtics moving off Marcus Smart. The Celtics acquire Porzingis, first round picks in 23 and 24, with the 2024 pick for the Warriors as a first round top 4 protected. Grizzlies get Marcus Smart. Wizards get Tyus Jones, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, and draft rights to Julian Phillips, who ended up being the number 35 pick. We're good with the Wizards aspect later on in the program. We have a whole segment about what the Wizards are doing. I know everybody seemingly just either doesn't understand or just, isn't paying attention to what the Wizards are doing, actually doing it the right way. But we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about this from a Celtic perspective, because during the playoffs, I thought that if the Celtics did not get to the NBA Finals or didn't win the championship, that this type of move could be coming. That Marcus Smart could be in play. Of course, they're never going to trade Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. Of course, he's their number one guy. But I thought Marcus Smart would be the guy. He's still relatively young. He still has a lot of value. But they're going long enough with this particular core. So I thought that if anyone was going to get traded, he would be one of the guys that could be put in play. Listen, I'm a Marcus Smart fan. I think he's a very good player. He's a leader. He's as tough as they come. He is a legit top perimeter defender in the league. Maybe he shouldn't have won Defensive Player last year, but he's a legit All-NBA caliber defensive player in this league. And he's still relatively young. I mean, Smart is 28, 29. Has some miles on him, but relatively durable and still young. So he had value. But you have Derek White. You can find a point. It's very easy finding a point guard in this league. It's not hard at all. There's a number of point guards in this league that you can find. And the bottom line is this, and this has been going to be a recurring theme throughout the course of the offseason, throughout the course for the NBA moving forward. It becomes a money situation. The bottom line is the Celtics are more than likely going to give Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum the supermax. You're talking about $600 million into being put into those two players. So you can't pay everybody. You get back a Porzingis. Now, listen, I understand that Porzingis has not been the most durable player in the league. He's last year probably was one of his better years as far as staying on the floor. He probably could have even played more if the Wizards were actually interested in winning or knew what the hell they were doing. But anyway, quietly, Porzingis had a all-star caliber season last year. Had his best season of his career, though it being on a team that was going nowhere. He's a rim protector. He's improved his shooting. He's an athletic big that can put the ball on the floor. Porzingis' talent has never been questioned. It's just been his durability per se. No, is he a classic post-up player? No, but that's 95% of the league doesn't post up anymore. So it's not a big deal. I like Porzingis. I think with the right type of culture, with the right leadership around him, in terms of coaching, veteran guys around him that have been in the NBA Finals, I think he could flourish. The thing is him staying on the floor. That's the biggest part of this. Is this a move that had to be done? No. If the Celtics would have came back standing pat, I wouldn't knock them for coming back to stand pat, to be honest with you, because I don't think their problem was a personnel issue. I think their problem was more internal with the lack of experience from a coach, with some of the stuff that was going on, that went on with Udoka, some of that stuff, that did not that could I thought affected them throughout the course of the season. And listen, you can't take away, you can't just dismiss losing your coach in essence right before the season starts. Like that cannot be lost on the fact that they could not finish the deal and get to the NBA Finals with a rookie coach. So the Celtics had a lot going against them last season, but you knew a move was coming. Like you knew, like the Celtics are they are the epitome of a team that is in win now mode. The Celtics have to win next year. They have to get to the NBA Finals. They have to win the championship next year. But they are like they are. It is like, I don't say now or never, but it's kind of maybe now or never, because once you give Jaylen Brown that supermax, and then the following offseason 2024 have to pay Jason Tatum the supermax, then you're going to lose some more pieces off your team, and you're going to have to go into a mode to where you basically better be hitting on draft picks. You better be hitting on player development, like we've been talking about over the last couple of podcasts. So what this move does, it gets you a player that I think can fit into your system, as far as a guy that they like 3-point shooters. He's a decent 3-point shooter, respectable, not great. He's a rim protector. He's a guy that can score the basketball. He's a pretty good rebounder. Is he a playmaker? Is he, in terms of assist guy, playmaker? No, that's not his strength. But you had like Jason Tatum. You have guys that could be playmakers on the team. Jason Tatum, Derek White's of the world. They got enough guys that can move the ball. They're based on ball movement anyway. They're not based on one-on-one players. So they're not looking for Porzingis to be, play ISO ball with Porzingis. Now, with Smart, are you losing the leader, the heart and soul in terms of leadership of your locker room? Absolutely. The quintessential intangible guy, sure, no question. Are you losing, probably, along with Jason Tatum, your best playmaker as far as passer? Yes, he is. So it's not like this wasn't a no-brainer trade. Like, think about what the Celtics got, right? They got 2 first-round picks, and they got a guy who has all-star caliber talent, Porzingis. In order to get that, you have to give up something. That's just the way it is. Like, more times than not, you're going to have to give up something. So I like the trade. I don't love it. It wasn't a slam dunk. It's not like a slam dunk. They had to do this, but I understand why they did this. And look, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Porzingis will come off the books after next year with the salary of a salary of $36 million. So again, you have to factor that in. And the bottom line, and you saw the Celtics on draft night make all these moves to acquire picks in lower rounds and what have you. At one point, you lost track of how many moves they were making. But in essence, what they were doing is they're going to have to be like, and a lot of teams are going to have to do this. They're going to have to accumulate a number of draft assets. They're going to have to hit on some of these draft picks and go from there. They're going to, they're not going to be able to go out there and get expensive veterans or pay everybody that's currently on their roster. Their roster at a certain point will not be as talented as it has been the last couple of years. This probably will be the last year they have a stacked roster. Because under with the current CBA coming, and with some of the, these tax aprons, first apron, second aprons, and luxury tax, with the luxury tax situation, you're just not going to be able to maneuver the way they. And this is not just for the Celtics, this is for anybody. You're just not going to be able to maneuver with spending the type of money that you were able to spend before this new CBA came along. And the Celtics, this is the reality for every one of the 30 teams in the league. And the Celtics are trying to get ahead, get a head start on that from that standpoint. So I like the trade. I understand why they did it. I think that, I think Smart, from a Memphis standpoint, I think it's a home run for Memphis, to be honest with you, because, I like Tyus Jones, but Tyus Jones is not Marcus Smart. Like Tyus Jones is not as good. Is not nowhere near as good as player as Marcus Smart. And from a Memphis standpoint, this was it was a no brainer. You're talking about getting a guy who is been one of the best defensive point guards in the league. He's been to the finals. He's won playoff series. He will command respect in that locker room, and they need some maturity in that locker room. They need some an adult. He is absolutely an adult in that locker room. Like, he will bring some leadership to that locker room. He will hold guys accountable. He will get in guys' faces. He will he'll get in John Moran's face once he gets back. So he is a perfect player of that the Memphis Grizzlies needed, a veteran presence who can play. Not just one of these guys. You get some of these guys nowadays because you get some of these guys who are veteran players who are not any good anymore. And let's be honest, like, if you're not in the rotation, if you're not barely playing, these younger players, especially the younger star players, are not going to respect you as much. They're just not. That's all there is to it. It's just not. Like, and right now, that culture, the Memphis culture, is shaky at best. He adds to that culture. So their culture, yes, they improved as a team. On the court, they improved on the court, and they also improved in the locker room, I would say, with this trade for the Grizzlies. And let's be honest, Smart his contract doesn't have it's not a bad contract. When you look at his contract, he's not making it's a team friendly contract considering the caliber player he is. And he absolutely will hold down the fort until Ja Morant gets back. Now, when Ja Morant does get back, you look at what they have on the floor with a possible starting line. We talk about Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, Jaren Jackson, leaving out Dane, and let's say Steven Adams. There's not a lot of that. That's not a lot of shooting. To be honest with you, now you could plug in the new guy that got hurt. And you plug him in, that's more shooting, but they don't have a lot of shooting. They don't have a lot of shooting. Now they defensively become exponentially better defensively. Like, Smart is a top tier defensive player, but that's something the shooting is going to have to be addressed in order for them to go to the next level. But this to me was a absolute no brainer deal for the Boston Celtics. I mean, for the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's get to the Chris Paul going to Golden State deal, because that kind of caught a lot of people off by surprise. Not so much Chris Paul got traded, but the fact that he got traded to Golden State. So Chris Paul goes to Golden State for Jordan Poole. So Chris Paul goes to Golden State for Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, and a protected first-round pick in 2020 and 2030, and a second-rounder in 2027. Chris Paul has an expiring contract of $30 million that will be coming off the books after this season. Jordan Poole had 4 years to 120. Jordan Poole's new extension was kicking in at 4 years, $128 million. A couple things here. Number one, this was absolutely it was more about anti-Jordan Poole than this was about pro-Chris Paul. Jordan Poole, was awful in the playoffs. He took a step back, had a good regular season, but was bad in the playoffs. And it didn't help that, of course, he got punched in the face in the preseason in October. It's been well detailed what happened with him and Draymond Green. Bottom line is, we could see this coming, that he was the guy that was going to get moved with everything that transpired. They were not going to choose. There's no way in the world that organization was going to choose, to me, Jordan Poole over Draymond Green, especially considering the influence of one Steph Curry. That just was not going to happen. So they couldn't bring both of those guys back. They just couldn't. You just couldn't do it. Like, in that locker room. And even Draymond Green admitted as much. Steve Kerr, to a lesser extent, admitted as much as that, how much that had an effect on their season. And it just did. Now, did it cost them a championship? Not going to go that far. I don't think the team was quite good enough. But you just can't like that dynamic, that chemistry. Someone gets punched in the face, and you have to work with them every day for the better part of 6 or 7 months. Like that, it's just not a good situation. Jordan Poole having a terrible postseason made it easier. They get off his contract. Of course, we know the financial situation with the Golden State Warriors. They are an absolute repeater tax candidate, to say the least. They're on pace to go past that second tax window. They are going to struggle to get under that second tax window, even with this deal, because they have so many guys making big time money. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Draymond Green. Listen, I don't see Draymond Green leaving Golden State, because I just don't think there's a great market out there for Draymond Green. Now, there's one team that we'll talk about that has the potential to pay Draymond Green, but I would have to see it to believe it for him to go and to go to that particular team. Even though it would make some sense, but I would have to see Draymond Green leave Golden State to believe it. But Golden State right now, this deal, you bring, from a basketball standpoint, you bring in, Chris Paul and his basketball IQ, and not sure how much of we're going to see. Not sure of how much we're going to see Chris Paul and Steph on the floor at the same time in the regular season. I don't know if you can play two guard. Can you play Steph at the two guard off? I don't know. This that's it. They'll be very small with those two on the floor at the same time. I think this is more about, in terms of, this would be more about the non-Steph minutes when he's off the floor. Chris, you have a guy who's a future Hall of Fame point guard, who's a professional playmaker, who is a guy who does not turn over the ball, obviously has a high basketball IQ. That's more about, to me, from a basketball standpoint, how much that would benefit Golden State. And a guy who's been in a lot of post big games, been in the NBA Finals. If you can keep him upright for the postseason, meaning he shouldn't be playing no more than 20 to 25 minutes in the regular season, then you have something. Then you certainly have an upgrade over Jordan Poole. But to me, the main thing, besides Chris Paul, the two biggest reasons why this deal was made was they get Jordan Poole off the team, and for money and for financial considerations. Those are the two biggest reasons why I think this deal was made off the team, or was made. Now, why this deal was made, Chris Paul being on the team would be the third. I don't think that they were targeting Chris Paul in this offseason. I just want to be honest with you. I don't think I think they, I think they saw opportunity when Chris Paul was traded to Washington. It was an opportunity because knowing that the Washington Wizards would have no interest in keeping Chris Paul, more than likely, and would want to move him. Golden State takes advantage of from that standpoint and moves Chris Paul. It moves Chris Paul to Golden State. So those were the two big moves that were made. Of course, we had a number of smaller moves that were cash, that were made on draft night. And again, if you really paid attention, the majority of those moves that were made during draft night were for financial consideration for this new up-and-coming CBA. That's all there is to it. They like that. Those were the reasons. Those were number one reasons why a lot of those moves were made. Even with the Denver Nuggets acquiring a first round pick, they probably won't be able to sign Bruce Brown. They get a guy who they can develop. They have had a great culture of developing talent over the course of their recent history with Michael Porter Jr., Michael Porter Jr., Jokic, and also Jamal Murray. So that will. That's going to be, again, you're going to see, that's going to be certainly a recurring theme, and teams are going to have to make sure that, listen, you're going to have to draft well. You're going to have to draft and develop talent. G League, Europe, you're going, that's just the way, this new NBA that we're in right now is going to expose a lot of front office. Exactly. And that, there are a number of front offices that were suspect as is, as far as how they did business, as far as developing talent, how they spent money. It is going to, the cream is really going to rise to the top in terms, you're going to really see who knows what they're doing with the way the NBA is going to go and conduct business moving forward. As far as so the Wizards have made a number of moves since Michael Winger took over, and they've received some criticism that I frankly just don't understand. So the Wizards, this is what the Wizards have done. They get 5 second-round picks and 4 first-round pick swaps from Phoenix for Bradley Beal. They get Tyus Jones on an expiring contract, Landry Shamet, Mike Muscala, Danilo Gallinari, all on expiring contracts. So that, if you add up all those expiring contracts, that comes out to about 25, well over $30 million of expiring contracts. You get a talented scorer in Jordan Poole, whose contract, as the years go along, will not look as bad. It won't. They have a trade asset possibly in Kyle Kuzma if they decide to do a sign trade with him, or he might just outright leave as a free agent, which is fine as well. I don't think they had any intentions on re-signing him. They still have a chance to get some assets or draft picks for him per se. This is how you rebuild if you're the Wizards. So like this is and they draft a guy. They get a guy who played on the same team as Victor Wembanyama, who a lot of people thought has a big upside. Now, a lot of people thought that this was a risky. His name is look up his name here. Bilal Coulibaly, number 7 pick. Now, again, a lot of people thought that this was a risky move, considering that he's kind of green and still very young and has a lot, some offensive, still maybe offensively challenged, but physical size, the athleticism, obviously, a lot of people were high on him. If you're going to take a risk on a player at the 7th pick, the perfect pick to do that is the number 7 pick. Like once you got past the first 3 picks, there was no, you could have took swings. And I guess the Thompson twins, once you got past, I can say the first 5 picks, then all bets are off. Like you could take some swings at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and what have you. Once you got past those first 5 picks, which seemed to be in the first 5 picks seemed to be kind of like locked in stone, especially the first 3 picks. So this is how you rebuild an NBA team. You don't mess around trying to do the halfway middle ground to where we're trying to compete for a playing spot, but also we want to, develop our young talent. No. If you're going to go full rebuild, then you go all in for rebuild. And the Wizards have gotten rid of all the players that they needed to get rid of, traded, like they had no use for Bradley Beal, Porzingis, Kuzma, Chris Paul. They didn't have any use for any of those players. And none of those players were going to take them anywhere in regards to being a contending team. So now you're in a situation where you have acquired a number of assets, quick swaps, draft picks, and you should have some cap space moving forward especially once these expiring contracts come off the board after the season. And you have in Tyus Jones with these expiring contracts, you have some more trade assets. There will be a number of teams that will be looking at Tyus Jones when the trade deadline comes around in 2024. All right, there will be some teams that will need a quality backup point guard who can play in the playoffs, who can play meaningful minutes. Tyus Jones is a valuable asset to have as a young top backup point guard more than capable of starting, by the way. Landry Shamet, $11 million coming off the books, is a veteran guy who some teams may be looking at to trade for. Danilo Gallinari, if he can come back relatively healthy, who is a proven scorer in this league? Who knows? He might come back and average 15, 20 points next year because like when he's been healthy, he can score. The guy can flat out score. That like he's a born scorer. He just hasn't been able to stay on the floor. So this is how, to me, how you do it. If you're the Wizards, you develop your young talent. We'll see. Now again, in order to get over the hump here, they're gonna have to hit on some of these picks. The Bilal pick, Jordan Poole has to play well. They had, they're gonna have to hit on some of these, especially on some of these draft picks moving forward. But the hard part is done. Like they've got the hard part is getting from under all these bad contracts and clearing your space out. That is the first step. First step is not. I say the hard part is, of course, landing a franchise caliber player. That's the hard part. But the first step of their rebuild is complete, and they've done it, to me, flawlessly. Now, I hear a lot about where they should have traded Bradley Beal last year. They could have got more for them. I just want to know how that would have looked with a guy who had a no trade clause. They got as much as they were going to give for Bradley Beal, considering that he had a no trade clause. Now, should he have ever had a no trade clause? No, that was the previous regime, and they were incompetent. We know how incompetent they were. This regime would not giving Bradley Beal a no trade clause. Again, I promise you, it just wouldn't happen. But if you're going to rebuild, this is how you rebuild. Draft night, of course, the biggest winner of draft night is the San Antonio Spurs. Like that, it goes without saying. They get a generational talent. There's been already overreaction to this guy's every move. This is going to have to be. This is going to be how it is. They have a video of him taking jump shots on the San Antonio Spurs uniform, and he's missing some mid-range shots, and his people are already overreacting. But whatever. They are the biggest winners of the draft. The Spurs, when you get the best player, when you get a player who is without question to me, going to be a transcendent superstar in this league, I think he's going to be able to play at a high level right away. You love the mentality. You love the mindset, the family background, the whole nine. He has everything going for him. And to me, there's no question that this guy is going to be a superstar, and he's with an organization that knows how to build around franchise, transcendent, talented centers or big men. So they were the biggest winners on draft night. Now, a couple of things that happened on draft night that were interesting. Number one, this should not have been a big surprise. Brandon Miller being drafted over Scoot Henderson with the number 2 pick. A lot of people thought there were many people that had Henderson rated higher than Brandon Miller in terms of his upside. But the bottom line is Brandon Miller is 6'9", Scoot Henderson is 6'1", and I'm not I can see this thing going either way. I think this is going to be one of those situations where there's going to be a winner in this and there's going to be a loser in this, because I don't trust Michael Jordan in terms of his ability to identify talent. You just look at the body of work, look at the history, look at the body of work. It speaks for itself from that standpoint. And just to show you how not dysfunctional and just how bad of an organization Charlotte has been, Michael Jordan makes a decision and he's on his way out the door. Like, he sold the majority of his stake. He sold the majority of the team. Like, he's a minority owner right now. He's not a majority. Like, he no longer, this deal goes through, he no longer will be the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. He sold the majority of his stake to another owner. Yeah, like he sold it. But he still has the power to make a decision that will affect them moving forward in the future, which just shows you that they just absolutely have no clue. As a prospective owner, I'm not allowing that to happen. Like, no, you're not. I'm buying the team. I'm making the decision along with Mitch Kupchak in terms of who he drafts. Like, you're not going to have say in terms of who he drafts. Like, I don't see how any incoming new owner would allow that. But anyway, that's why they have been in a position that they've been in. So from that standpoint, you say, I can make a case to take Scoot Henderson over Brandon Miller. The stuff that happened at Alabama with Brandon Miller worries me as far as his character. That standpoint, that stuff has gotten swept under the carpet. You just go do the research on yourself on what happened with that case, what happened with that particular case, and Like we just gonna forget about that. But from a basketball standpoint, I'm not big. Again, I know people are comparing Scoot Henderson to Russell Westbrook and some guys. Russell Westbrook is 6'3", Scoot Henderson is 6'1". Small guards in the NBA, I'm not into the way the game is played. And a lot of these guys have to switch on big men like Jokic or like Giannis. I'm looking, if you're looking to win a championship, you're building a team to win a championship, and you think that this guy is a franchise guy, you have to think that way. Can he defend pick and rolls and switches in a playoff series against some of the best players in the world, big men or even bigger players? Like you have to have that mentality as a general manager, as a personnel guy, if you're going to make this draft, if you're going to make this draft pick. Brandon Miller is 6'9", Scoot Henderson is 6'1", and I don't think that there's a major difference in terms of talent. Like I don't think Scoot Henderson is that much more talented than Brandon Miller. So from that standpoint, I understand why Charlotte made the move for Brandon Miller. Scoot Henderson goes to Portland. I don't think that he and Dame Lillard will ever step on the court together. That's another small backcourt, like 6'1", 6'3", like that. I don't see how that. I don't see that being a fit. Number one, and number two, more importantly, I don't see Dame Lillard accepting the fact that you drafted this guy that you're not on the same time. We're not on the same timeline. Like he's 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. Dame Lillard is 32, 33. Dame Lillard is trying to win right now. So I don't think Dame Lillard may not publicly demand a trade, but I just can't see Dame Lillard not being traded before the season starts. I don't think either one of these guys plays. I don't think that Dame Lillard and Scoot Henderson will play on the same team. We'll step on the floor together, I would say. So a couple of things. So no big trades no star trades, like no Lillard, Williamson, Bam Adebayo. We never believed that was going to happen. So none of those guys get traded. Doesn't mean that they won't get traded. But as of right now, those guys are going to be with their respective teams. Bam is not going to get traded, so that's out. That's out. But no, Lillard and Zion Williamson have yet to be traded. I think for the season that Lillard will be traded myself. Looking ahead to free agency, you have a situation where you have some big name guys, some aging stars who I think it'd be very interesting to see where they go with James Harden, Draymond Green, Chris Middleton's, Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving's. Now, out of those guys, I think the guy that could have the biggest impact on the team would be, in terms of winning, would probably be Draymond Green, to be honest with you. And he would be the guy, and we'll get back to, this is what Sacramento did. Sacramento made some moves where they cleared up on draft night with some trades that they cleared up $35 million in cap space. And there's a lot of belief with the Mike Brown, Draymond Green connection that they're going to go after Draymond Green. So you can keep your eyes on that. The Harden to Houston thing is a real thing. We understand that. Chris Middleton, be very interesting to see where Chris Middleton ends up, because if you're Milwaukee, I don't think you can afford to pay Chris Middleton $30 to $35 million a year and maintain and fill out the rest of your roster with getting guys that can help you get back to the NBA Finals. I didn't think that they could bring back both Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. And you say to yourself, well, which one is more valuable? I mean, probably Chris Middleton is probably more valuable, but he is older. Not older, but he's been injury prone over the last couple of years. And Brook Lopez would be cheaper. Like, people are not overpaying for big men like that. So I think it's more likely that Lopez will be back and Middleton will not. To myself, I had to pick which one of those guys will be back. Middleton can help a team, but he's had, he's had some injury issues over the past couple seasons. He has not played a lot of basketball, and that's something that you have to take into consideration if you're going to give him just this almost max money, which he's going to demand, considering he's like a three-time, basically a three-time All-Star and NBA champion. Kyrie Irving is going to be signed with Dallas. I don't see any other team. I don't think the Lakers are going to make a super play for Kyrie Irving. I don't think he's taking a pay cut to rejoin to join the Lakers and play with LeBron. I think Dallas is out of desperation will go after Kyrie, will re-sign Kyrie Irving. So, and in terms of Russell Westbrook, I don't know. Like, I honestly don't have a feel for what type of team would go after Russell Westbrook. If he's not willing to take a substantial pay cut. So it really depends on what is he willing to play for in terms of where he ends up. So we will see what happens with free agency. It's coming up in a couple of days. You're going to hear there could be some trades leading up to free agency. We'll definitely talk about it on this program. I just wonder how much money is going to be given out, considering the situation with this new CBA. There are not that many teams that have a lot of cap space. There are about 3 or 4 teams. Houston, Detroit has a little bit. Sacramento has cleared a lot. Oklahoma City has some, though they gave away some of that with some of the moves they made on draft day, but they still have about $15-16 million of cap space. So, but again, I don't expect Oklahoma City to go after somebody like one of these guys. If they're going to go after somebody, they'll go after probably a cheap veteran or somebody like that to add some for some leadership in that locker room, considering they have so many young players. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I will talk to you in a couple of days. Have a great rest of your weekend.